because it was off the air, because all the politics were off the air, Stephen Dunifer and the Coalition for Democratic Pacifica decided to broadcast all the rallies, but not only broadcast the rallies using micropower radio, but a friend of mine has a server in his room, and that server was right across from KPFA. So not only did we broadcast in the Berkeley area, but we also were able to put it on the internet. So now that it was on the internet, it meant not only could we broadcast from there, have it go on the internet, but we also figured out a way to take it from the internet and put it onto micropower radio stations. And that led to the idea that we can actually have a string of stations, which in turn becomes a network for, say, the Bay Area, by simply taking this portable micropower radio, taking it to the rallies, broadcasting it, putting it on the internet, and then at the other end of the internet, anybody who has a server can take it off and rebroadcast it on micropower radio. And we're still in the process of setting these stations up, because one never knows what will happen with KPFA. They can shut the signal down anytime they want, because they have an ISDN line up at the transmitter, and that allows them to close down the station and rebroadcast from anywhere. If they do that, because we're setting up this string of micropower stations that's connected through the internet, we're able to have our own network to get the information out to folks.
The council been here for 2 weeks and we haven't budged. We ain't into all these committees and stuff. We all told them when we first came, we got the door and we're not going to leave until we're able to walk through that door and it's our station with no compromise. That's what we telling them, no compromise. What committee they belong to, who's selling what to where, we don't know. Because a lot of stuff being behind doors. They don't even tell us, and we hear every day. But I tell you this, we're not compromising. We're going right through this door, and we're not giving up until we go through this door. We've been here for 2 straight weeks, day and night.
So we found this location here in the west end of Berkeley. The landlord helped us out, agreeing to let us put our beautiful antenna up on the roof and run wiring to it. And Berkeley Liberation Radio was born. Right now we have about 40 to 50 volunteers. We're a dues-paying organization. Everybody chips in $10 a month to help pay for our rent and telephone and other meager expenses. And we broadcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have pre-recorded programming during the late night hours. And then during daytime hours, there's usually somebody in the studio.
Showing their true colors, Pacifica had Nicole Sawyer fired. Ben Bensky and Robbie Osmond, now Dennis Bernstein's been unhired. So we're taking a stand as we march and chant, please listen to what we say. 'Cause where would we be in times like these without KPFA?
What kind of stuff do you have on your show usually?
I don't know. Next week, like, I'm going to have the city councilman, Chris Worthington, and I've had the mayor on my show. Some local stuff, you know, what's going on in the neighborhood, trying to keep our neighborhood at least somewhat sane. I deal Thoreau on Telegraph Avenue and Telegraph and Channing, man, and I'm going to tell you something, you know, that's a strange place to be doing that.
We have a show totally dedicated to talking about the trade embargo with Cuba and why it should be lifted. We have a senior statesman by the name of Bill Mandel, who comes in every week and reads from his autobiography, which is quite an interesting story.
What kind of stuff does he talk about?
Being in the Soviet Union back in the early days of the revolution, and growing up on the streets of New York and being part of the free speech movement here in the 60s in Berkeley. All sorts of interesting non-mainstream music. We have folks who come in and do shows with just drum and bass music, or folks who come in and do like bluegrass and folk music. We have a DJ who was one of the great London sound system reggae DJs by the name of Ibby Judah, and he comes in and does radio on Saturday and Sunday. All sorts of music. Political issues of all kinds can be heard. A good example is Bicycle Liberation Radio. They've been with us since we turned it on back in 1995, They're on every Friday night, and their goal is the elimination of all automobiles and to replace them with a bicycle-friendly society. And they're doing this bridge by bridge, street by street. They have critical mass rides in Berkeley and also in San Francisco, where hundreds and hundreds of bicyclists take to the street and travel in a pack and mess up the automobile traffic. And so that's a program that you will never hear on commercial radio or KPFA or anywhere else.
Today there is a KPFA rally over in Oakland at Mosswood Park starting, about 10 minutes ago. And it's going to be an all-day thing, so if you didn't get there yet, you can go on down. There's music, food, and refreshments. And the purpose is that it's a First Amendment rights rally. So as you know, that's what we're here for too, First Amendment rights.
Elvis, you who are the trickster, the horned one, and our own son, King be with me. You who are the essence of cool and the essence of tacky, teach me the power of paradox. Elvis, you who embody mirth and reverence, help me to learn to laugh at myself.
Yeah, 104.1. 104.1 back. Tune it in. Listen. We got some reggae guys on the air right now. They're smoking.
That's good, man.
My fellow Americans, it is my patriotic duty to deliver the most important poem of the decade. Ode to the noble hemp plant.
Came on, I think it was March 26, 1997, and 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There was a 2-month period after about 5 months in the air that we thought, oh, we'll go off from 2 until 6. And we heard so much protest over that we said, forget it, we're going to come back on the air. And we've been over 2 years now, 24/7.
What are some of the things on a daily basis or weekly basis that's on this station that you probably wouldn't hear on mainstream radio?
Well, one of the things that we offer probably that makes us most unique is the opportunity for anybody at any time to come into our station and talk about whatever is of concern to them at that day. And that includes politicians, that includes people who live in neighborhoods who are being threatened by development, or people who are concerned about environmental issues. It's an immediate and intimate format of communication to talk to your neighbors.
Microkind Radio is an excellent radio station in San Marcos, Texas. They are on the World Wide Web. They have a real audio feed. I enjoy listening to them in Berkeley. They come in fine over my computer speaker.
Printing wasn't an option because the expense, the time, the effort, and in itself is kind of against what we're doing because you've got to chop trees down and all that stuff. So trying to be, anyway, then that's when we heard about Dunifer in California. And there was some local people here that wanted to do a station, so we said, would we help anything out we could? And it was about a year's process from the time we bought the transmitter until we went on the air. 6 to 8 months of that was for them to decide they really didn't want to do it. And then the rest of the time was finding an engineer to bring the station up. And then actually what happened is they brought Dunifer down here to South by Southwest, and him and an Austin engineer came down here and set the fancy engineering stuff up that has to be set up. It's not that fancy, but. And then Dunifer turned on the station. This was like in mid-March. At that time, then we published a schedule of time slots. We started our week on Tuesday in San Marcos because nobody really gets anything done here on Monday, and so we just blow that off. We start our mornings when the sun comes up, so our calendar starts at 6 a.m., goes from Tuesday until Monday. Austin's doing their schedules that way too. It's much more, it's less Christian.
Every 2 hours, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, there's another person who comes through and does a show. From midnight to 6 a.m., it's pretty much anything goes. We allow full creative bounty. and except for the pornography. The basic undermining question that we look at to a programmer if they're going to be pushing the rules is, what will your answer be to the federal prosecutor who asks you, what is the source material of these sounds? And if you have to say it's an X-rated movie, well, that's pornography. If you say, well, that's me and my girlfriend working together to express our human desire to overcome the sadness and poverty in the world, sounds good to me. Yeah.
You mentioned that Dunifer and those guys hadn't applied for a license first. Do you think that's what a lot of stations need to do to avoid getting shut down?
Well, that's what the Wilkins ruling was that if since they hadn't applied for a license, they didn't have any standing in federal court. Now, although our suits with Canyon Lake Radio, we did apply. We did the whole, we even asked them for a waiver. I was in the military and government long enough, I knew that there's a waiver for everything. If you want to get a blowjob while you're president, there's a waiver for it, right? You gotta go through Congress. And so we'd asked them for a legitimate waiver. I mean, there was no reason they should deny us that. Our stations had all been stolen from this town. We had no access to the community, and FCC was in violation of their own policies. So why not? But it'll be interesting to see what happens at this point.
Have they contacted you recently, the FCC?
Yes, the FCC recently finally issued me a cease and desist order following a long protracted paper battle. During the Hays County Guardian publication of our newspaper, Southwest Texas State University banned our distribution on campus. We, in turn, had to sue them in federal court, had to go all the way to the United States Supreme Court, where we were vindicated and won our right to distribute our newspaper for free on any public university in the country. And that was a landmark case. And in that case, they defined the Hays County Guardian as non-commercial, free speech press. They do not license any radio stations below 100 watts. And what we're trying to do as a locally based media organization, trying to get news and local information to the local community, we have a very limited target audience. And so that we don't feel that we need more than what we're using right now, 45. We don't need more than 100 watts to reach our target audience.
We have 22 hours a day, roughly, of citizens being on the air that are not professionals, that are just citizens.
We have voiced our concerns for over 3 years, only to be told, if you don't like the way we run things, move on. Many elected officials refuse to meet with us to hear our concerns. They exclude us and treat us unfairly. They have forced many good employees to quit rather than put up with the unfairness and insensitivity of supervisors and their hatchet men. Hays County Road Crew Workers Task Force and their supporters are tired of broken promises and the daily harassment and intimidation of their supervisors. These grown men are tired of being cursed at, given unsafe equipment and dangerous assignments by supervisors. These grown men are tired of being cursed at, given unsafe equipment and dangerous assignments by supervisors. Enough is enough.
And like one of the things that's really beautiful we've developed here is, I call it participatory journalism, where we have taken people and transferred them from listeners to now participants in our telling of news and information. People have call us up and tell us what their experiences are about a certain issue, and then, or I'll talk about a certain issue, and then they will call up government officials and report back what those government officials said, and become part of the telling of the story.
This is all flow. We've done this all very organically. We've created, for example, if anything happens in San Marcos now, people all have all these little digital phones and stuff. They themselves, they don't have to be a reporter or anything else, are calling in, giving the stories. So it's a different kind of news. It's a different kind of flavor, and it's more of a community responsibility rather than leaving it up to a professional organization to supply you with what they think is right.
I've been blessed to have the ability to do road construction, operate several pieces of equipment, and I believe that God wanted me to work for the county. I feel great working for the county. I like to do what the county does. But then when I started seeing the discrimination that the road director has the attitude that if you like it, fine. If not, I'll find somebody else. That's a piece of cake, you know, go ahead. And doesn't care about the seniority, the loyalty, the dedication that you've had, being there on time, and using unsafe equipment, well, because, well, I need the job, all right, and him abusing of that, you know, and then all of a sudden, something within inside of you says, stand up and fight, because righteousness prevails. So I believe that that's the, you know, it came up inside of me that I looked around, and my mama, before she passed away, she lived here almost 4 years, and she paid taxes here. And I said, well, how can I go home and tell my mama that it's all right to keep paying taxes when I see how her tax money was being wasted out there, the inconsistency of the roads? Like, well, the road director said, I'm going to prove that I can do this, I can, but it really wasn't being done right.
You think you've got a lot of listeners around here?
We are the only game in town when certain events occur. For example, there was a devastating 500-year flood that came into San Marcos and hit this area dramatically. People in surrounding counties, every surrounding county to us, had people die during the flood. We were on the flood. We went live with phone callers, had hundreds of phone callers, nonstop. I did 4 hours that night from 6 to 8, and then came back from 10 to 12. Constant calls the whole time, getting reports from people around town about the conditions. We're intimately involved throughout the entire event with educating the people with services that were being threatened or places they could go, connecting families together, doing everything that is necessary in an emergency situation to prepare a community to respond to a crisis.
There was a house that had been stranded that had been able to call and said they were listening to the radio before their power went out. And so the police had called our station to put it on the air for them to hang where they were. They were getting a helicopter in or whatever to come get them. And they heard it on there because they had battery-powered radio. If that kind of communications weren't going on in our town where the police can use us, there was even a time when somebody lost a duffel bag of clothes. They were new to town, they a student that came to town. And they had met somebody that day and they said, well, call Kind Radio and they'll get your clothes back. And 5 hours later, the guy had his clothes back. Somebody had found him, was listening to radio. When you have that kind of community participation during disasters, then everybody feels the responsibility of helping out.
Sometimes elected officials, not all our elected officials, become complacent and they turn the other way and they forget about the people that do the work under the sun, that do work that calls for a lot of skill, even though some of them might not think it's highly skilled work. But constructing roads is a highly skilled profession, and we want to keep our most experienced men and or individuals and women to keep constructing these roads. And once again, I want to ask you for your support and remind our elected officials that when you, as elected officials, become complacent, you who were elected by the people of this county and the community of San Marcos, we will push for reform. We will not stand idly by and let this inconsistent policy of discrimination, or the consistent policy, of discrimination, harassment, and intimidation of our citizens to continue.
Why do you think the FCC hasn't shut you down so far? I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, longer than most.
Right. I think that the FCC is really bothered by our arguments. I think they have a real problem in justifying action against us because what we do is what radio, and particularly FM radio, was established for. We have a group of individuals that have stood up and taken control of those airwaves in a responsible in a very creative and a dynamic manner that have made it urgent listening. People are compelled to listen to our station. People's lives have been impacted in dramatic ways in our community as a result of this radio station. And I see the same thing possible in communities across this nation.
There's everything from Latin hip-hop to country and western to, and you might go from a rap music show to a country western 2 hours later. I mean, it's every 2 hours, and we do no formatting. That's one thing we've seen in a lot of stations. They want to format, they want to censor, they want to do this. We do no formatting. If you apply for a time period and that time period opens up, you get it. And you might be right next to gang members that are doing their show, and the next one might be anarchists, and the next, I mean, might be flower children, whatever. I mean, it's so it has a whole different flavor in the community.
One of the biggest impacts is on our youth. I live in they call this the heart of the ghetto. I know my mom's not gonna love this, but and she actually comes out and visits me, and you know, you have a rap band, yeah, they're live from the heart of the ghetto, you know, Kind Radio. Okay. And so there's gang activity, and there was, at points in time, there gets friction within the different gang affiliations with our community. And what the radio station has done is smooth those. We have gangs who have one show following another, or who have crossed into each other's shows because the music and the scene, and it's like a whole, I've seen individual youth change from being all bad, you know, and all, you know, trying to, you know, be bad, you know, nasty, I mean, doing bad things, have bad habits, doing dangerous things, to all of a sudden they're working on their raps, and now they're all, you know, they're looking good, man. They're, you know, got this shit going, they got the style going, they're working on their words, because it ain't easy coming up with a rap song, man. It's even harder coming up with a rap song and the beats to put together.
There was one point where we had a lot of liberal programmers on, but they didn't want people like the Klan, Ku Klux Klan on, or the pro-life people or all that. And it was like, no, this station's open to everybody. You know, it's open to everybody. And that's one of the things we've seen with some of the other stations, that they want to pre-censor who they're putting on. And I don't agree with that, because it's freedom of speech, it's free airwaves.
The funding of our station is basically provided through a $10 a month programmer's fee, where each programmer gives $10 a month, and we use that money to pay for the electric bill, to pay for equipment, and various other things. Also, we request that programmers bring toilet paper. Toilet paper is a real problem, so we ask them. That's not a requirement, but we like the programmers to bring toilet paper, especially the women, like, you know, when I have toilet paper here. And I learned, like, after like the first 3 or 4 weeks, there was no way I was going to be able to keep this house loaded with toilet paper, but I do have, a lot of people do credit me with having the cleanest public restroom in town, so anyway.
Now what about the donkey meter? Explain the donkey.
This is our goal of our programmers, is to keep this needle from getting buried over here or just be laying dead.
Yeah.
This gives us a certain level of dynamics, which is so it sounds better on people's radios. But that's again one of those parts of unprofessionalism. Some people use the donkey meter as an element of their show, and they will purposely bury it because of the buzz and feedback attempts, or other times kick it back on it, so people have to turn up their radios and then blast them later. So we have a lot of innovations that people can start playing and messing with people's minds with about all of them we do here.
It's kind of interesting because each micro station takes on the character and personality of the people at that station. And of course, San Marcos, Texas, they're right near the Mexican border. And a lot of the DJs have kind of a southern twang to their voice. And they're into Texas music and, you know, border music. And southern Texas is very hot and dry, so people like to drink beer to, you know, keep their fluid level up. So a lot of times you'll hear people, you know, drinking beer on the air and, you know, spouting off drunkenly about what they think of the mayor of San Marcos or whatever. And so, you know, it has a great Texas regional flavor.
And Pappy wants to make a comment at this point, and I would like to hand the microphone over to him.
Guess what? You might just find Pappy there, 'cause that's my birthday. What a cool thing to happen on my birthday. Can't you just dig it? Chick-a-boom, chick-a-boom. Can't you just dig it? Chick-a-boom, chick-a-boom. I'm out of here for a second.
Thank you, Pappy, for those very inspiring words.
Yeah. Warning, DTI is coming. Special request Wildfire Station. DTI want to stop, but on the lick we have to bounce right back. What me tell them say? So we have five radio station. Tell DTI that we don't
do you want to establish a micro broadcasting, a legitimate micro broadcasting service so everybody get a shot at doing this? Or do you want to be anarchists and go out there and just willy-nilly broadcast on it? There's a real division here in this world.
4-3 for anarchy.
Pardon? Anarchy, or I'm going to give you some advice. You got a window of opportunity. You got an FCC chairman. This probably never happened again in the history of this country. You got an FCC chairman who likes this idea, and he's got 2 or 3 votes there. He only needs 3 votes to do this. He's got, but he's not going to be able to do it if Congress steps on him. You got to go up to Congress. You got to get people on the Hill to back this idea to give Bill Kennard cover to do this. You can do this, but you got to get organized. You got to get political. You can't be anarchist.
We're lobbying later today, actually.
Oh, that's good. You got to.
Do you really think the FCC would have listened to us had we not gone on the air and break the law? And just out of the kindness of the heart, do you think they would have said, well, okay, well, let's consider micro-broadcasting? No, people have been trying to get licenses for micro-radio for 20 years since the licenses were abolished, and they've denied them. So we have to put the cart before the horse. That's all we could do to get their attention.
Today to get that started. And you're all welcome to join us at our rally at 11 o'clock at DuPont.
There is a place for civil disobedience, and I think it does bring attention. But I just don't think it's going to move the ball here. I think you gotta put on a suit and tie. You gotta go to Capitol Hill and convince these guys.
Yes, and we run the town where we're keeping a function. The crowd gather around. Walk to the face, then we're behind the sound. So the late eye, the leave we alone. Community with a fear for we own. Vibrant station, roll the air zone. Our pirate station, we follow away. Cause we are pirate radio station. The late eye, that we don't give a damn. We are the famous radio station. Our pirate station.
I don't know, they've just been bugging us because we've been wanting what we want to say on the radio, and they've been having cows about it, about us playing like loud, aggressive music, some punk rock and stuff, and to hell with that, man. We have freedom of speech. We can say what we want to say when we want to say it, man.
That's right. Exactly. The opposite of, or the counter to bad speech is more speech. And as a good friend of mine put it last night, we have the right to say what we want to say, when we want to say it, even if we don't have anything to say. So I'm going to go roaming around here and talk to the
Hi. How close are you? I have the straps on. Don't have to... I gotta get the race started.
to take that step immediately. And I thank you very much for talking to me.
Morgan, you're an amazing man.
Radio station, all massive them. Who me tell them say? Me tell them PCRL, me say in a Birmingham. And them brand text, me say in a Midlands. When me gonna Derby, gonna Bristol, gonna Tindam.
What are you guys doing out here today?
Oh, okay. Well, we come to the steps of the FCC and the National Association of Broadcasters to let them know that a policy of pure repression against micro radio is just not going to work. It's just not going to work to keep the voices of America silent. Most democratic countries understand that it is a necessity to have a free media system. It's necessary for ordinary citizens to be able to communicate, and if they can't communicate, they're going to turn to piracy. FCC today to publicly defy their administrative regulation prohibiting broadcasting at less than 100 watts. We have brought a giant free speech switch. We will throw this free speech. We will throw this free speech switch. I'm going to yell at you. We're going to throw this free speech switch, and we're going to turn on our free radio station in front of the offices of the FCC. What we are also going to do is we're going to bring a new kind of radio to Washington, D.C.'s airwaves. It's actually kind of old. We're going to bring a brief radio play, a kind of radio that is neglected by the current over-formatted radio of today, and we're going to bring it to the chairman of the FCC. We're encouraging the chairman of the FCC to come on down and put the handcuffs on us if he thinks what we're doing is so damn wrong.
What's important isn't whether they want to get into a semantical argument about that transmitter. What's important is if they're interested in microbroadcasting, making their views known to the FCC and giving us their comments and the benefit of their views so we can make a reasoned, intelligent judgment. That's, again, the chairman says they should harness their energies in a constructive fashion to be, within the law.
Please allow me to introduce the characters. This is FCC Chairman Bill Canardio. This is the National Association of Broadcasters. Gorilla of a lobbying association used to getting its way on Capitol Hill. And that is the corporate giant that pulls the strings behind all of them. Corporate America. Corporate America creates a kind of radio that all it is about is teaching people that the only way that they're going to be happy is if they buy more stuff. Let's take it to who's really pulling the strings, the National Association of Broadcasters. So let's take
We want our transmitter back! Yeah! We want our transmitter back!
Free our airwaves! 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 Free our airwaves!
That's 6 feet. I want 6 feet of space in here.
Everybody back 3 steps. Everybody back 3 steps. Move back 3 steps. 3 steps.
Well, I tried to advise you to move away, and I announced it. They claim that I stole the flag.
That 6 feet goes for the media also.
But he's gone.
The flag?
It was a demonstration by pirate broadcasters in front of the NAB. They pulled down the NAB flag. They rolled up the Jolly Roger flag. It was a source of entertainment for us.
You know, India is a very big country, and we can't afford to eat this McDonald's junk food.
The Indie Media Center, put together by the folks in Seattle, my understanding is they've got websites, they got print, audio, photographs. They got video. I mean, I was out tape recording a labor rally earlier with the steelworkers, one of the few permitted rallies today. And people are just, you know, encoding it, digitally encoding it and putting it on the web.
The idea behind it being
Big to get the message out without going through the traditional gatekeepers of the media. And I think that's been a really big success.
All right, you're listening to Studio X here, broadcasting Voices of Occupied Seattle, coming to you from front lines here on Thursday evening from heart of downtown Seattle inside the Constitution Free Zone, otherwise known as the curfew zone in downtown Seattle.
Downtown Seattle is not constitutionally protected.
Yes, it is. Downtown Seattle's not constitutionally protected, so it's not part of downtown.
This country has this hidden history of when people don't have a voice, when they cannot control their own destiny and their futures, they take to the streets and raise bloody hell. And this is what's been happening here in Seattle.
Then they took their battle to the streets. The first pepper spray followed isolated clashes between protesters and police.
I've got my respirator. I can sit peacefully. They'll have to arrest me and drag me out by my hair.
The arrest began as tensions grew along with the crowd. Tens of thousands of union workers marched downtown in the afternoon, turning up the heat. Heat that eventually turned to fire, rioting, and a disturbing refrain from Chicago, 1968.
I have to commend people who were in lock boxes, locked down in the middle of these streets on Tuesday, you know, being literally showered with munitions from the police, flashbang grenades flying over their heads, tear gas, pepper spray, OC gas, CS gas, all being wafted down on them while they're locked down in a support circle and kind of stay there in the middle of this intersection and put up with this kind of abuse. But the amazing thing was, when they stayed there and stood their ground to this kind of abuse, the cops decided they were too much trouble and would move to the next intersection and try the same tactic all over again on people who maybe were more willing to move and not stand their ground.
That I'm confident that that our police. The other thing I heard was many kudos for both the Seattle Police Department, the King County Police Department who worked with us, the State Patrol, that our officers showed restraint.
Anybody who has any incidents to report, the ACLU would like you to either call their website or call their phone number. And any unprovoked physical aggression by police, shoving, kicking, hitting with billy clubs, overly forceful restraint, use of pepper spray, tear gas, CS gas, shots of rubber bullets against nonviolent protesters or onlookers, either without warning or in excess. Being pursued or chased by police when trying to flee or disperse. Encountering any of these activities as a bystander or within an area that is not a designated no protest zone or other unreasonable restrictions on your civil liberties. Please call, on the website is www.aclu.
I got hit by a police baton.
Why?
Because I was standing in the street and he was purposely going for my head.
These are rubber bullets. This is the tear gas. But it pops open in the air.
Kind of like a paintball. Yeah, that one has been popped open, and there's the gas that's inside.
And also got shot in the rear. I'll bet these were one of the larger of the bullets, though, because
it felt really, it felt big, but I mean, of course, I don't know. All I heard was like a steel, and all of a sudden, all the cops dropped and started firing. And
it was so quick.
Instantly, something hit me in the head, and I fell. My head was ringing, and I didn't even know I was bleeding for quite a while. And I took my hat off, and I saw my hand was all bloody.
So you were walking towards them?
We were actually walking just right by them, not even towards them, not threateningly. We were saying peaceful demonstration. We had our fingers in the air. It was so unprovoked.
When people were being so peaceful and just blocking the streets, but being very peaceful about it and all of a sudden the policeman would just decide to jump up and run over and spray some tear gas or some pepper spray, and it was really hard to figure out why.
The cops were just, I mean, even this fairly corporate news talk person was on the radio last night. He was even calling it a police riot. So I feel we're making some progress here in education about what's really going on out here. I mean, this is pretty unprecedented use of force it's starting to basically look like Europe, and I guess that's probably not unusual considering the fact that apparently some of the trainers for the Seattle police were the German police forces that are used to quell demonstrations in Germany.
These demonstrations in Seattle should have happened 6 years ago, and the reason why they didn't is because the mass commercial media shut out the critical issues affecting the World Trade Organization legislation was being proposed by President Clinton to the U.S. Congress.
Hey, Michael.
Yeah.
I'm working on a documentary film on pirate radio broadcasting.
Oh, good for you. Very important.
Wondering what you think of the whole issue.
Well, I fund some of them.
Do you?
That's all I have to say about that.
What do you do? What brought you out here to the WTO?
The guy that runs the WTO, he copped my name. It's some kind of weird punishment. I must have done something in my life to deserve this. You know, it's kind of like that other guy who's named Lee Harvey Oswald, but he's not the guy, you know? But it's like for the rest of his life, he's Lee Harvey Oswald.
So you've been mistaken.
I'm stuck with the same thing now.
Have you talked to him?
I'm trying to talk to him. They wouldn't let me through.
Have you thought about a name change?
He could change his name. You know? He should just change his name from Mike Moore to I'm dumb as shit for coming to Seattle, you know?
Is there any place that has more liberals in Seattle?